The Leipzig Connection, Chapter 5. A gift from God. It took hundreds of millions of dollars to turn American education around in that short a period of time. Where did the money that inflamed this epidemic come from? How was it spent? How did the mainstream of experimental psychology meet up with a mainstream of millions of dollars? The answer, it must be admitted, is enough to make one feel distinctly uneasy. The new psychology, excuse me, the new psychology tapped the richest existing vein of American wealth and philanthropy, and in short order won for itself the backing of almost unlimited funds. Here were its new buildings, its endowments, its publications, its research facilities, transportation, salaries, the wherewithal to spread like wildfire throughout the entire fabric of American education. Just a reminder that nothing is free. No such thing as free. Because even if you want to build buildings, somebody has to give you the money for that. You just can't want to build a whole new type of psychology without any money or money to pay the people who are working hard. People talk a lot nowadays about free. Nobody really does stuff for free. Everybody wants to be paid. Continuing, the checks were to emanate not from the uptown headquarters of Columbia Teachers College in New York City's Morningside Heights, but from number 26 Broadway around the corner from the financial capital of the world on Wall Street. Number 26 Broadway was the most famous business address in the country, perhaps in the world. It was the corporate home of Standard Oil Company, owned and operated by John D. Rockefeller Sr. The story of how the resources of the great oil monopoly came to be used in the spread of a new psychology covers a period of some 40 years and began with Mr. Rockefeller himself. As every school child used to know, Rockefeller created one of the largest monopolies of his time. He began in the oil business in 1863 and by 1880 had won control of 95% of U.S. oil production. He controlled the drilling of oil, the refineries, the prices, and the transportation of crude and refined oil through an intricate tank car system. He sabotaged his own competitors, hired spies to infiltrate the businesses of his enemies, and squeezed out independent operators by carefully conceived secret contracts. By 1910, when a glass of beer cost a penny and a loaf of bread less than a nickel, when a three-room apartment went for $500 a month and a good pair of shoes for $1, Rockefeller had assets of over $800 million. In 1980's buying power, that equates to over $10 billion. Rockefeller liked to make money. At age 41, he was quoted as saying, "I have ways of making money you know nothing of," and later attributed his money-making power to a gift from God. And the Rockefeller family, adding in, the Rockefeller family was in the banking business also back in the early 1900s, 1910. That's something else he was involved in along with the Morgans. Excuse me. So to hear him say that making money is a gift from God isn't that far from being something that we can't understand. Because remember, they wanted to make it so money was just something that they could create out of thin air. So go figure, because God is allowing you to get away with something that you really shouldn't be able to do. And it's not God letting you get away with it. Well, technically it is. But the other part is the people who aren't able to stop you from doing what you're doing. So reading on, I believe the power to make money is a gift from God, just as are the instincts for art, music, literature, the doctor's talent, yours to be developed and used to the best of our ability for the good of mankind. Yeah, right. Having been endowed with the gift I possess, I believe it is my duty to make money and still more money and to use the money I make for the good of my fellow man, according to the dictates of my conscience. Well, we know where his conscience is. Definitely not on helping people, but hey, it sounds good. And make money he did. But his conscience notwithstanding, he became one of the most hated men in the country. You talk a good game, but now you have to live it. It was more than 30 years since he had began his career, and Rockefeller was the central figure of the most spectacular success story in business history. The Standard was indisputably the most powerful industrial organization in the nation and the most visible symbol of growing American might abroad. But for Rockefeller personally, the price had been heavy. He had become identified with all the excesses the Standard had committed in its rise to power. Hatred clung to him like iron filings to a magnet. Rockefeller had pursued his Leviathan with complete dedication, but now he found himself lashed to its back as inextricably as Ahab, and in equal danger of being taken down for good. People were after him because they realized that he was crooked. I mean, when you're on top, they're definitely going to come for you. And when you're on top and you're crooked, they probably like to bring you down even more. But the question is, how are they going to do that when you're the most powerful man in the country, or at least one of them? Rockefeller was excoriated by the organs of public opinion and was the target of numerous investigating committees. His fortune and holdings were growing faster than he could control or protect them. He needed a special assistant who could both polish up his public image and act as hatchet man in the consolidation of his far-flung business empire. Rockefeller, a Baptist, had over the years given sums of money to various Baptist causes. By the late 1880s, the church elders felt bold enough to ask Rockefeller to contribute to the rebuilding of the University of Chicago, a Baptist school funded in 1856 as the Morgan Park Theological Seminary. Acceding to their request, Rockefeller became immersed in the reconstruction of the university, giving to it in 1887 the then huge sum of $600,000. It was during this involvement with the university that he met Frederick Taylor Gates, a Baptist minister who had previously worked for George A. Pillsbury, founder of the Flour Empire, and distributing Pillsbury's last philanthropies before his death. Rockefeller was impressed by Gates' directness and by the manner in which he had handled financial affairs. Constantly besieged by requests for money, Rockefeller asked Gates to work for him and take the burden of philanthropic decisions off his shoulders. Gates was soon handling all requests for Rockefeller money and doing what he could to polish up the Rockefeller image. He also recognized Rockefeller's ownership of the great Mesabi ore deposits in Minnesota, which provided 60% of the nation's iron ore, buying out the stockholders of personal holdings which were in trouble and eliminating unprofitable holdings from the Rockefeller portfolio. Gates grew frantic, however, at the extent of Rockefeller's financial holdings and of the threat they contained for Rockefeller. Your fortune is rolling up like an avalanche. You must distribute it faster than it grows. If you do not, it will crush you and your children and your children's children, as Gates later recalled. I trembled as I witnessed the unreasoning popular resentment at Mr. Rockefeller's riches. To the masses of people, a national menace. It was not, however, the unreasoning public prejudice of his vast fortune that chiefly troubled me. Was it to be handed on to posterity, as other great fortunes have been handed down by their possessors, with scandalous results to their descendants and powerful tendencies to social demoralization? I saw no other course but for Mr. Rockefeller and his son to form a series of great corporate philanthropies for forwarding civilization and all its elements in this land and all lands, philanthropies, if possible, limitless in time and amount, broad in scope, and self-perpetuating. So, that's the end of chapter 6. Fairly short, no problems. I'm going to talk a little bit here about dividing up your money, because this is where you begin to take over all areas of society, because you're giving money everywhere. And any and everybody who wants your money, they're going to bow down to what your plans are in the end, especially if you offer them a decent sum of money, right? You're going to have to pay these people so they can get to work. And so he said right here at the end, limitless in time and amount. Give, 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 give. Keep giving money. Don't even care about it. Just give it out. Broad in scope. We're going to cover everything and self-perpetuating. That means this is going to go on forever. And the Rockefeller Foundation still gives money out to this day in bundles. But anyway, we'll move on to chapter 6 shortly.